The Wyoming night was so quiet Willow Hayes could hear her own heartbeat as she stepped onto the wooden porch, her bare feet silent against the weathered planks as she gazed up at the diamond-scattered sky above Eureka in the summer of 1882. She had waited until her father's snoring rumbled through the thin walls of their modest ranch house before slipping outside, clutching her shawl against the cooling air. This was her ritual, her secret communion with the vast darkness that stretched beyond the rolling hills and scattered pines. During the day, she was expected to be proper, quiet, dutiful. But at night, under the canopy of stars, she could finally breathe. She could finally sing. Willow walked past the barn where their 3 horses slept, past the chicken coop where the hens had long since settled, until she reached the fence line that marked the eastern boundary of their property. The land beyond belonged to the Navarro Ranch, a sprawling operation that her father spoke of with equal parts admiration and envy. She leaned against the rough wooden post and tilted her face toward the heavens, letting the starlight wash over her skin. Then she opened her mouth and let the song pour out. It was a melody without words at first, just pure sound that rose and fell like the wind through canyon walls. Her voice carried across the empty prairie, clear and haunting, filled with all the longing and wonder that she kept locked away during daylight hours. She sang of freedom, of wide open spaces, of dreams that felt too big for a 20-year-old woman living on a struggling cattle ranch with a widowed father who had forgotten how to smile. She did not know that less than 100 yards away, Vincent Navarro had reined in his horse and sat frozen in his saddle, listening. Vincent had been riding the property lines, checking for breaks in the fence and signs of the wolves that had been troubling their cattle. At 26, he had been running the Navarro Ranch for 3 years since his father's death, and the responsibility weighed heavily on shoulders that were already broad enough. He worked from dawn until long past dusk most days, pushing himself until exhaustion claimed him. Tonight had been no different, except that he had heard something that made him forget about wolves and cattle and every other concern that typically occupied his mind. A voice. A woman's voice, singing to the darkness. He urged his horse forward slowly, careful not to make noise, following the sound until he could see her silhouette against the starlit sky. She stood at the fence line, her head thrown back, her arms slightly spread as if she were trying to embrace the entire universe. Her hair fell loose down her back in waves that caught the moonlight, and even from this distance, he could see the passion in every line of her body. Vincent had heard professional singers in Denver and Cheyenne during his rare trips to the cities. He had heard saloon girls in church choirs and traveling performers, but he had never heard anything like this. This was raw and real, unpolished but perfect in its honesty. This was a voice that came from somewhere deep inside, somewhere most people never accessed. When the song finally ended, trailing off into the night air like smoke, Vincent found himself holding his breath, hoping she would start again. Instead, she lowered her head and wrapped her arms around herself, standing in silence for a long moment. Then she spoke, so softly he almost could not hear it. "Thank you for listening," she said to the stars. Vincent's horse chose that moment to snort and shift its weight, and the sound shattered the stillness like a gunshot. The woman at the fence spun around, her hand flying to her throat, her eyes wide with alarm. "Who's there?" Her voice was sharp now, afraid, all the music gone from it. Vincent cursed himself for a fool and urged his horse forward into a patch of moonlight where she could see him. He pulled off his hat, holding it against his chest in a gesture of peace. "I apologize, miss. I did not mean to startle you. I was checking the fence lines and I heard you singing." She took a step back, her body tense as a bowstring. "How long have you been there?" long enough to know you have the most beautiful voice I have ever heard." Even in the dim light, he could see color flood her cheeks. She clutched her shawl tighter around her shoulders, and he realized she was in her nightdress, probably having snuck out when she thought no one would see her. The impropriety of the situation hit them both at the same moment. "I should go," she said quickly, already turning back toward the house he could barely see in the distance. "Wait," Vincent said, dismounting from his horse in one fluid motion. "Please, I am Vincent Navarro. My family owns the property adjacent to yours." She paused, glancing back at him over her shoulder. "I know who you are, Mr. Navarro. Everyone in Eureka knows who you are." "Then you have me at a disadvantage, Miss Willow Hayes." The name came reluctantly, as if she was not sure she should be giving it. "Miss Hayes." He took a few steps closer but kept a respectful distance. "I truly am sorry for intruding on your privacy, but I am glad I did, because otherwise I never would have heard something so remarkable." "Do you sing often?" "That is none of your concern." She was moving again, hurrying back toward her house. "Will you be out here tomorrow night?" he called after her. "No," she said firmly, but Vincent smiled as he watched her disappear into the darkness because he had heard the lie in her voice. She would be back. Someone who sang like that with that much need and passion could not stay away. And if she came back, so would he. Willow did not sleep that night. She lay in her narrow bed, staring at the ceiling, her heart racing every time she thought about the tall figure on horseback who had emerged from the shadows. Vincent Navarro. She had seen him in town before, always riding in with his ranch hands, always busy with business, always looking serious and preoccupied. He was handsome in a rugged way, with dark hair that curled slightly at his collar and eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. Every unmarried woman in Eureka, and most of the married ones too, had noticed Vincent Navarro, but he had never noticed her. Why would he? She was just Thomas Hayes's daughter, the girl who helped her father run a ranch that was barely scraping by, who wore faded dresses and kept her head down in town because they could not afford for her to put on airs. She was nobody special, nothing remarkable, except for her voice. She pressed her hands to her burning cheeks in the darkness. He had said she had a beautiful voice, the most beautiful he had ever heard. The words played over and over in her mind like a melody she could not forget. No one had ever said anything like that to her before. Her mother had encouraged her singing when she was alive, but that had been years ago, before the fever took her. Her father never mentioned it, probably did not even know she still did it. And she certainly never sang in public, never even in church, too afraid of drawing attention to herself. But Vincent Navarro had heard her. And worse, he knew where to find her. She told herself firmly that she would not go out tomorrow night. It was not proper. It was not safe. A young woman meeting a young man in secret under the stars was the sort of thing that ruined reputations and destroyed futures. She had to be sensible. But when the next night came and her father's snores once again filled the house, Willow found her feet carrying her out to the porch, down past the barn, all the way to the fence line where the stars burned bright and endless overhead. She told herself she was not looking for him. She told herself she was here because she needed to sing, because the music inside her had to come out, or she would burst from the pressure of keeping it contained. It had nothing to do with the cowboy who had listened in the darkness, but her eyes scanned the shadows anyway, searching. He was not there. She waited, telling herself she was relieved, fighting the strange, hollow disappointment that settled in her chest. Finally, she took a breath and began to sing, a slower song tonight, something melancholy and sweet that her mother used to hum while she worked in the kitchen. The melody wrapped around her like an embrace, and she let herself sink into it, closing her eyes. When she opened them again, Vincent Navarro was sitting on his horse at the edge of the moonlight, perfectly still, watching her. Her voice faltered, but she did not stop this time. Something in his eyes, even at this distance, gave her courage. He was not judging or mocking. He was simply listening with an intensity that made her feel like her singing mattered, like it was important. So she kept going, finishing the song properly, letting the last note drift away before she spoke. "You said you were checking fence lines." "I was," Vincent said, dismounting. "Found 3 breaks today, fixed them all. And yet here you are again tonight. Here I am." He moved closer, leading his horse by the reins. "I was hoping you would come back. I should not be here. This is not appropriate." "Probably not," he agreed, "but I cannot bring myself to care about that right now. Willow, may I call you Willow?" The sound of her name in his deep voice sent a shiver through her that had nothing to do with the cool night air. "I suppose you already are." "Willow," he said again, as if testing how it felt. "Why do you only sing at night? Why hide something so beautiful?" She looked away, hugging herself. "It is not the kind of thing people like me are supposed to do. We are supposed to be quiet and practical. My father needs my help running the ranch. There is no time or place for singing. That is the saddest thing I have ever heard. That is life, Mr. Navarro. Vincent. Please call me Vincent." He was close enough now that she could see the details of his face in the starlight, the strong line of his jaw, the slight crookedness of his nose that suggested it had been broken at some point. "And I disagree. Life should have room for the things that make us feel alive. Otherwise, what is the point? The point is survival, keeping food on the table and a roof over our heads. Those are the things that matter." "Those are important," Vincent conceded, "but they are not the only things that matter. When I heard you singing last night, it was the first time in 3 years I have felt something other than tired and worried. For those few minutes, I remembered what it was like to feel wonder, to feel possibility. You gave me that." Willow's breath caught in her throat. She did not know what to say to that, to the raw honesty in his voice. So instead she asked, "What happened 3 years ago?" "My father died. Heart gave out while he was mending a fence. I found him when he did not come home for supper. Since then, it has just been me running the ranch, trying to keep everything going, trying to honor what he built. Some days I am not sure I am doing a good job of it. I heard your ranch is very successful." "It is, but success comes at a cost. I work all the time. I have not taken a full day off since the funeral. I do not socialize, I do not go to the town dances, I barely even make it to church most Sundays. I just work until I am too exhausted to think, and then I sleep and wake up and do it all over again. That sounds lonely." "It is." Vincent's eyes met hers, and there was something vulnerable in them that made her chest tighten. "Until last night, I did not realize how lonely." They stood in silence for a moment, the truth of his words hanging between them. Then Willow said softly, "I understand. I have felt that way since my mother died. Like I am just going through the motions, doing what needs to be done, but not really living. The singing helps. It is the only time I feel like myself." "Then never stop," Vincent said fiercely. "Promise me. Whatever happens, do not let the world take that away from you. That is easy for you to say. You are a man, you own property, you have freedom to make choices. I have my father to think about, a reputation to maintain. If anyone knew I was out here at night singing, let alone meeting with you, I would be ruined." Vincent nodded slowly, acknowledging the truth of it. "You are right. I am sorry. I should not have come back tonight. I should leave you in peace." But he did not move, and neither did she. "Will you sing one more song?" he asked finally. "Please. Just one more, and then I will go." Willow knew she should say no. She should turn around and go back to the house and never come out here at night again. But looking at Vincent Navarro's face, seeing the hope and hunger in his eyes, she could not bring herself to refuse. So she nodded, turned her face back to the stars, and sang. This time she chose a livelier tune, something with a bit of joy in it, a song about meadowlarks and morning sunshine that her mother used to sing while hanging laundry. Her voice soared and dipped, painting pictures in the air with sound, and when she was done, Vincent was smiling the most genuine smile she had ever seen on any man's face. "Thank you," he said. "That was a gift. You are welcome. Will you be here tomorrow night?" Willow hesitated. Every sensible part of her brain screamed at her to say no, to end this before it became something dangerous. But there was another part of her, a part she usually kept locked away tight, that wanted to say yes. That wanted to see that smile again, to sing for someone who truly listened, to feel less alone even if just for a few stolen moments in the darkness. "Maybe," she said finally. "I cannot promise. Maybe is good enough for me." Vincent swung back up onto his horse with an easy grace that spoke of a lifetime in the saddle. "Good night, Willow Hayes. Good night, Vincent Navarro." She watched him ride away into the shadows, and only when the sound of hoofbeats had completely faded did she turn and walk back to the house. But this time, as she slipped into her bed, she found herself smiling at the ceiling instead of staring at it with sleepless anxiety. And when she finally drifted off, she dreamed of singing under endless stars while someone in the darkness listened with his whole heart. The pattern continued for 2 weeks. Every night, Willow would wait until her father was asleep, then slip outside to the fence line. And every night, Vincent would be there, waiting on his horse at the edge of the shadows. Sometimes he would stay mounted, listening from a respectful distance. Other times he would dismount and lean against the fence while she sang, and afterward, they would talk. She learned that he had grown up on the ranch, that he had loved his father fiercely, but also found him impossible to please at times, that his mother had died when he was young enough that he barely remembered her. She learned that he had once dreamed of being a lawyer, had even gone to school in Denver for a year, but had come home when his father's health started failing. She learned that he loved horses more than cattle, that he could not carry a tune to save his life but appreciated music deeply, that he read everything he could get his hands on during the rare moments he was not working, and she told him things she had never told anyone. About how she missed her mother every single day, how she felt guilty for resenting her father even though she knew he was doing his best, how she sometimes felt trapped by her life even though she loved the land and the wide open sky. She told him about the songs that came to her in dreams, melodies she heard in the wind and the creek water and the calls of hawks soaring overhead. She told him she had once imagined traveling to San Francisco or even New York, singing in grand theaters for audiences in fine clothes, but that dream felt as distant as the stars themselves now. "Why?" Vincent asked. "Why should it be impossible?" They were sitting on the fence that night, side by side, careful not to touch but close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his body. It was late August, and the air was heavy and warm even after the sun had gone down. Because women like me do not do things like that. We do not leave our families to chase dreams. We do not put ourselves on display. And even if I wanted to try, I have no money, no connections, no way to even get to a city like that. What if you did have a way? What if money were not an issue? Would you go?" Willow considered the question seriously. "I do not know. Part of me thinks yes, absolutely, in a heartbeat, but another part of me wonders if I would just be running away from the real problem, which is that I do not know who I am or what I want. I only know who I am supposed to be and what is expected of me. The singing is the only thing that feels true." Vincent was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "I know who you are. She turned to look at him, her heart suddenly pounding. You are brave. Braver than you give yourself credit for. It takes courage to keep singing when the world tells you to be quiet. It takes courage to dream of more even when everything around you says you should be satisfied with less. It takes courage to meet me out here night after night, even though you know the risk. Or maybe it just makes me foolish. No, Vincent's voice was firm. Not foolish, never foolish. You are the most remarkable person I have ever met, Willow Hayes. You make me want to be better. To do more with my life than just work myself into the ground. Every night I spend listening to you sing, I remember what it feels like to be alive instead of just existing. Willow's breath caught. They were looking at each other now, really looking, and she could see in his eyes that something had shifted. This was not just friendly conversation anymore. This was something deeper, something that both thrilled and terrified her. "Vincent," she whispered, "we should not. I know. If anyone found out, I know. My reputation would be destroyed. Your reputation would be damaged. There would be talk. I know all of that." Vincent reached out slowly, giving her plenty of time to pull away, and gently touched her cheek. His hand was calloused and warm, and she found herself leaning into the touch despite every warning voice in her head. "But I cannot seem to care. Not when you are looking at me like that. Not when I have spent 2 weeks falling completely in love with you." The words hung in the air between them, impossible and perfect and terrifying. Willow knew she should deny it, should put distance between them, should protect herself and her future. But instead, she heard herself say, "I have been falling in love with you too." Vincent's eyes lit up like someone had kindled a fire behind them. Yeah, she laughed, a little giddy and scared all at once. "It is probably the most foolish thing I have ever done, but yes, when I am singing, I am not singing to the stars anymore. I am singing to you, for you. You have become the reason I sing every night." He cupped her face in both hands then, thumbs brushing across her cheekbones. "Can I kiss you?" "Yes," Willow breathed. "Please, yes." When Vincent's lips met hers, it was like the first notes of a song she had been waiting her whole life to hear. Sweet and gentle at first, then deeper, more passionate, as if they were both trying to pour everything they felt into this one perfect moment. She gripped his shoulders, steadying herself against the wave of sensation that threatened to sweep her away, and he wrapped an arm around her waist, pulling her closer. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Vincent rested his forehead against hers. "I want to court you properly. With your father's permission, in the daylight. I want everyone in Eureka to know that you are mine and I am yours." "My father will never approve," Willow said, even though her heart was soaring. "Your ranch is successful. Ours barely breaks even. He will think I am trying to improve my circumstances, that I am being opportunistic. He is too proud to accept what he will see as charity. Then I will make him see it differently. I will make him understand that you are not the one benefiting from this match. I am. That I am the lucky one." "Vincent." She touched his face, loving the way his eyes closed briefly at her touch. "It is not that simple." "Then we will make it simple. I will talk to him tomorrow. I will ask for permission to court you. If he says no, we will figure something else out, but I am not giving you up, Willow. Not now that I have found you." The determination in his voice made her believe that maybe, just maybe, things could work out. Maybe love was enough to overcome pride and circumstance, and all the practical concerns that usually govern their lives. Maybe for once she could have something she wanted instead of just accepting what life handed her. "All right," she said. "Talk to him, but be prepared for him to say no. If he does, will you still meet me here? Every night," Willow promised. "No matter what happens, I will be here. I will sing for you, because you are right. You have become the reason I sing." They kissed again, longer this time, and when Willow finally forced herself to pull away and head back to the house, she felt like she was floating instead of walking. She touched her lips with her fingertips, still feeling the pressure of his mouth on hers, and smiled so wide her cheeks ached. Behind her, Vincent watched until she disappeared safely inside, then mounted his horse and rode home with his heart fuller than it had been in years. Tomorrow he would face Thomas Hayes. Tomorrow he would start building the future he wanted instead of just maintaining the one he had inherited. Tomorrow everything would change. But for tonight, he simply rode through the darkness thinking about a woman with a voice like starlight and a heart brave enough to love him back. Vincent showed up at the Hayes ranch at mid-morning the next day, freshly shaved and wearing his best shirt. He had rehearsed what he would say during the entire ride over, running through arguments and appeals and explanations. But as he dismounted in front of the modest ranch house and saw Thomas Hayes emerge from the barn, all his carefully planned words fled his mind. Thomas Hayes was a weathered man in his late 50s, with the kind of face that had forgotten how to be soft. He looked Vincent up and down with suspicion immediately evident in his eyes. "Mr. Navarro, what brings you to my property?" "Mr. Hayes, sir. I was hoping I could have a word with you about a personal matter." Thomas's eyes narrowed. "What kind of personal matter?" "It concerns your daughter, sir. Might we speak inside?" For a moment, Vincent thought the older man might refuse. But Thomas jerked his head toward the house and led the way up the porch steps. The inside was clean but sparse, with furniture that had seen better days and walls that needed fresh paint. Thomas gestured to a chair at the kitchen table but did not offer any refreshments. "Say what you came to say." Vincent sat down, trying to project confidence he did not entirely feel. "Sir, I have come to ask your permission to court your daughter Willow." Thomas's face went through several expressions in rapid succession. Surprise, confusion, suspicion, and finally something that looked like anger. "Court Willow? You do not even know her." "Actually, sir, I do. We have been talking for the past couple of weeks. I have gotten to know her quite well, and I believe she is the most remarkable woman I have ever met. I would like the opportunity to see if we suit each other, with your blessing." "Talking? When have you been talking to my daughter?" Vincent had known this question was coming, but he still had to choose his words carefully. "We have been meeting at the property line between our ranches in the evenings. It has all been completely proper, sir. We have just been getting to know each other." Thomas stood up so fast his chair scraped loudly against the floor. "You have been meeting my daughter in secret, at night, without my knowledge or permission, and you call that proper, sir, please?" "I know how it sounds, but I assure you my intentions are completely honorable. I would like to court Willow the right way, with your approval, out in the open. That is why I am here." "You are here because you got caught," Thomas snapped, "or because you are worried about getting caught. What have you done to my daughter? What liberties have you taken?" "None," Vincent said firmly, standing to face the older man. "I have been nothing but respectful. We have talked and she has shared her singing with me, and that is all. I am here because I have genuine feelings for her, and I believe she has feelings for me as well." "Her singing?" Thomas looked genuinely confused now. "What singing?" Vincent realized his mistake too late. "Sir, your daughter has a beautiful voice. She sings at night under the stars." "You truly did not know. Willow does not sing. Her mother used to sing, but Willow has not done that since she was a child. With respect, sir, she does, and she is extraordinarily talented. You should hear her." "I do not need you to tell me about my own daughter." Thomas crossed his arms. "My answer is no. You are not going to court Willow. You are not going to meet her in secret. You are going to stay on your property and she will stay on ours, and that is the end of it. Mr. Hayes, please, just give me a chance to prove my intentions are genuine." "No, you want to know why. because I know how this story ends. Rich rancher's son courts poor rancher's daughter. Maybe he even marries her if she is lucky. But it is never an equal partnership. She is always at a disadvantage, always dependent on him, always one fight away from being cast aside. I will not let that happen to Willow. She deserves better. She deserves to be happy, Vincent argued. She deserves to have someone in her life who appreciates her for who she is, not just what she can do for them. I can give her that. What you can give her is a scandal if word gets out that you have been meeting her at night. You have already put her reputation at risk. I should run you off my property right now. But you are not going to do that, Vincent said quietly. Because if you do, Willow will just keep meeting me anyway. And then it really will become a scandal. But if you give us your blessing, if you let me court her properly, everything will be above board and appropriate. No one can question it. Thomas stared at him for a long moment, and Vincent could see the struggle playing out behind his eyes. Finally, the older man said, "You say she has feelings for you." "I believe so, yes, sir." "Then I will ask her. And if she says she does not want you coming around, you will respect that and stay away." Agreed. It was not the wholehearted approval Vincent had hoped for, but it was better than an outright refusal. Agreed. May I speak with her now? She is not here. She took the wagon into town for supplies. She should be back by mid-afternoon. Vincent nodded. Then I will come back this evening if that is acceptable to hear her answer. Fine, but you will stay on the porch. You will not be alone with her, and if she says no, you will leave and not come back. Are we clear? Yes, sir. Crystal clear. As Vincent rode away from the Hayes ranch, he tried to feel optimistic. At least Thomas had not refused outright. At least he was willing to ask Willow what she wanted. But he also knew that the older man would phrase the question in a way that made him seem like a scoundrel who had taken advantage of her. He could only hope that Willow would be strong enough to stand up to her father and speak her truth. Back in town, Willow was loading supplies into the wagon when she saw Sally Morrison approaching. Sally was the closest thing she had to a friend in Eureka, though they had drifted apart in recent years as Sally had married and started a family. "Willow Hayes, I have not seen you in weeks." "How are you doing?" "I am well, Sally. How are the children, growing like weeds and twice as wild?" Sally laughed, but her eyes were shrewd as she looked Willow up and down. "You look different, happier somehow. What has changed?" Willow felt her cheeks heat. "Nothing has changed. Same old life, same old routines." "Now I know you are lying. I have known you since we were girls, and I can tell when something is going on. You have met someone, have you not?" "Sally, keep your voice down," Willow hissed, looking around to make sure no one was listening. "I knew it. Who is he?" "Anyone I know." Willow hesitated, but the need to talk to someone to share this enormous secret was overwhelming. "Vincent Navarro." Sally's eyes went wide as dinner plates. "Vincent Navarro, the Vincent Navarro who owns half the land in this county. It is not that much land, and yes, him. But we are not officially courting or anything. We have just been talking. That is all. Talking." Sally's grin was knowing. "Sure, just talking. And I suppose you just happened to start glowing like a lantern from all this talking. Stop it." But Willow was smiling despite herself. "It probably will not go anywhere. My father will never approve." "Why not? Vincent Navarro is the best catch in 3 counties. Any father would be thrilled." "My father is proud. He will think Vincent is only interested in me out of pity, or because he wants to expand his land holdings or some other practical reason. He will not believe it could be real." "Is it real?" Sally asked seriously. "Do you love him?" Willow thought about Vincent's smile when he watched her sing, the gentle way he touched her face, the fierce determination in his voice when he said he was not giving her up. "Yes," she said softly. "I think I really do." "Then fight for it." Do not let pride or fear or anything else get in the way. Life is too short, Willow. If you have found someone who makes you happy, hold on to him with both hands. The words stayed with Willow during the ride home, giving her courage. When she arrived back at the ranch and saw her father waiting on the porch with his arms crossed and a stern expression on his face, she knew Vincent had already been there. "We need to talk," Thomas said before she had even finished securing the wagon. "I know. Vincent came by, did he not?" "So you admit it. You have been sneaking around with him behind my back." Willow lifted her chin. "I have been talking with him, getting to know him, and yes, I did not tell you because I knew you would react exactly like this." "How did you expect me to react?" "You have been meeting a man alone at night. Do you have any idea how that looks? What people would say if they knew? No one knows except you and Vincent and me, and we were not doing anything wrong. We were just talking, and I was singing." He mentioned that. "Since when do you sing?" "Since always, Papa. I have been singing at night for years. You never notice because you are always asleep and I am always quiet about it. But it is important to me. It is the only thing that is just mine." Thomas's face softened slightly. "You sound like your mother. She used to say the same thing about her singing." "I know. I remember. And I remember how happy it made her, even when times were hard. Do not you want me to have that kind of happiness?" "Of course I do, but not at the cost of your reputation or your future." "This man, this Vincent Navarro, what does he really want from you?" "He wants to court me properly. With your permission." "He told you that, did he not?" "He did. But I want to know what you want. If you tell me to send him away, I will. If you tell me you are not interested, he will respect that. So I am asking you directly, Willow. Do you want this man courting you?" Willow met her father's eyes without flinching. "Yes, Papa, I do. I know it probably seems sudden to you, and I know you have concerns about his intentions, but he makes me happy. He listens to me sing and he sees me, really sees me in a way no one else ever has. I would like the chance to see where this could go." Thomas was quiet for a long time, studying her face. Finally, he sighed. "You are not a child anymore. You are a grown woman, and I suppose you are entitled to make your own choices. If this is what you want, I will not stand in your way, but there will be conditions." "What conditions?" "He comes here to see you, not the other way around. You are never alone with him without a chaperone. He treats you with respect at all times, and if he hurts you or disrespects you in any way, the arrangement ends immediately." "Agreed, agreed." Willow felt tears prick her eyes. She had not expected her father to give in, not really. "Thank you, Papa. Do not thank me yet. We will see if this man is serious, or if he loses interest once the novelty wears off. I am still not convinced he knows what he is getting into." "Neither am I," Willow admitted, "but I would like to find out." That evening, Vincent returned to the Hayes ranch as promised. Thomas greeted him at the door with a gruff expression, but stepped aside to let him in. Willow was waiting in the parlor, wearing her best dress, her hair neatly pinned up. She looked nervous and beautiful, and Vincent had to resist the urge to cross the room and pull her into his arms. "Mr. Navarro," Thomas said formally, "my daughter has informed me that she is amenable to your suit. Therefore, I am giving you permission to court her with the conditions I outlined earlier." "Thank you, sir. I promise I will honor those conditions and treat your daughter with the respect she deserves. See that you do." Thomas settled into a chair in the corner with a book, making it clear he intended to stay and chaperone. "Willow, offer the man some refreshment." The next hour was stilted and awkward, with both of them hyper-aware of Thomas's presence and trying to have a conversation that was appropriate for an audience. They talked about the weather, about the ranch, about nothing of real consequence, but their eyes said everything their words could not. Vincent looked at her like she was the most precious thing in the world. Willow looked at him like he was her salvation. When the time came for Vincent to leave, Thomas walked him to the door. "You will come for Sunday dinner in 2 days. We will see how you fit with this family." "I would be honored, sir." As Vincent rode away, he found himself smiling despite the stiffness of the evening. It was not ideal, this courtship under watchful eyes. But it was a start. It was official and above board. And most importantly, Willow had chosen him. She had stood up to her father and said she wanted him in her life. Now he just had to prove to Thomas Hayes that he was worthy of that choice. Sunday dinner was a tense affair. Thomas watched Vincent like a hawk, asking pointed questions about his business practices, his plans for the future, his views on everything from politics to religion. Vincent answered carefully and honestly, trying to show that he was a man of substance and character. Willow sat quietly, her hands folded in her lap, occasionally shooting apologetic looks in his direction. By the time dessert was served, Vincent's jaw ached from maintaining a polite smile. But then Willow served him a piece of apple pie, and their fingers brushed briefly as she handed him the plate. That one small touch was enough to remind him why he was here, why this was all worth it. After dinner, Thomas grudgingly allowed them to sit on the porch together while he washed dishes inside, though he left the door open so he could hear their conversation. "I am sorry about my father," Willow said quietly. "He is being difficult. He is being protective. I understand it. If I had a daughter as wonderful as you, I would be suspicious of any man who came courting too. Still, this is not what I imagined our courtship would be like." "What did you imagine?" Willow looked out at the darkening sky where the first stars were beginning to appear. "I imagined meeting you at the fence line, singing for you, talking without someone listening to every word, being able to hold your hand without worrying about propriety." "We can still do that," Vincent said, pitching his voice low so Thomas would not hear. "Meet me tonight. After your father is asleep, just for a little while, I need to talk to you without an audience. Vincent, we should not risk it if my father found out. He will not find out, and I promise I will have you home quickly. Please, Willow. I feel like I have not really seen you in days, even though we just spent hours together." She looked at him, and he saw the same longing in her eyes that he felt in his chest. "All right, I will come, same place as always." Vincent left shortly after, making a show of thanking Thomas for dinner and promising to call again soon. But a few hours later, as the moon rose over the Wyoming prairie, he was back at the fence line, waiting. Willow appeared like a ghost in the darkness, practically running across the open ground between the house and the meeting place. The moment she was close enough, Vincent opened his arms and she fell into them, both of them clutching each other as if they had been separated for years instead of hours. "I missed you," she said against his chest. "That sounds foolish since I just saw you, but I missed you. The real you, not the version you have to be in front of my father. I missed you too, the real you, the one who sings to the stars and says exactly what she is thinking." He pulled back just enough to see her face. "Will you sing for me? It has been too long." So Willow sang, and it was like coming home after a long journey. Her voice poured out into the night, and Vincent listened with his eyes closed, letting the music wash over him. When she finished, he pulled her close again and kissed her properly, without worrying about who might see or what anyone might think. "This is torture," he said when they finally came up for air. "Seeing you only under your father's supervision, having to pretend we are just politely getting to know each other when I already love you more than I have ever loved anything. I know, but it is what we have to do. My father needs time to get used to the idea of us. Eventually, he will relax. He will see that you are serious about me. I am serious about you. Willow, I want to marry you. I know it is too soon to say that officially, but I am saying it here now under the stars. I want you to be my wife. I want to wake up every morning and hear you singing. I want to build a life with you." Tears slipped down Willow's cheeks, catching the starlight. "I want that too, more than anything, but we have to be patient. We have to do this right." "I know." Vincent wiped her tears away with his thumbs. "I will wait as long as I have to. But it is going to be the longest wait of my life." They stayed at the fence line for another hour, talking and kissing and simply being together without pretense. When Willow finally insisted she had to get back before her father woke up, Vincent watched her go with a mixture of love and frustration. This secret courtship was both the best and worst thing he had ever experienced. The best because it was Willow, because every stolen moment felt precious and intense. The worst because he wanted to shout from the rooftops that she was his, that they were in love, that nothing was going to keep them apart. As autumn progressed, the pattern continued. Vincent called on Willow at the Hayes ranch 2 or 3 times a week, always under Thomas's watchful eye. They attended church together on Sundays, with Thomas sitting firmly between them in the pew. They went on carefully chaperoned walks around town, with gossip following in their wake as people speculated about the unlikely pairing of successful rancher Vincent Navarro and poor rancher's daughter Willow Hayes. But at night, at the fence line, they were truly themselves. Willow sang and Vincent listened, and they held each other and talked about everything and nothing. They discussed the ranch, politics, books, dreams for the future. They shared kisses that grew more passionate as the weeks passed, though Vincent was always careful to maintain the boundaries of propriety. He wanted Willow to know he respected her, that his intentions were truly honorable, even when every fiber of his being wanted more. One night in late October, Willow arrived at the fence line later than usual, and Vincent could tell immediately that something was wrong. Her eyes were red from crying and her hands were shaking. "What happened?" He pulled her into his arms. "What is wrong, my father? We had a terrible fight. He says this courtship has gone on long enough that you need to either propose or end it. He says people are starting to talk, saying I have been keeping company with you for months with no sign of a wedding. He says it looks bad. Then I will propose right now." Vincent dropped to one knee immediately, taking her hand. "Willow Hayes, will you marry me? Will you be my wife and sing for me every night for the rest of our lives?" "Vincent, get up. You cannot propose like this in the dark with no ring. It is not proper." "I do not care about proper. I care about you, and I am done waiting." He stood up but kept hold of her hand. "Tomorrow I am going to ask your father for your hand in marriage. I am going to do it right, the way he wants. And then we are going to have a proper engagement and a proper wedding, and you are going to come live with me at my ranch where you can sing as loudly as you want anytime you want." He might say no. He will not say no. He knows how much we care about each other. He has seen how seriously I take this courtship. He will say yes. But Willow looked uncertain. He has been talking about money a lot lately, about how the ranch is not doing well, how we might lose it if things do not improve. I think part of why he wants you to propose is because he thinks marrying me off to you will solve his financial problems. And I hate that. I do not want you to feel obligated to help him. I do not want our marriage to be about money. Vincent framed her face with his hands. Our marriage will be about love, only love. Nothing else matters. And yes, I will probably help your father if he needs it, but that will be because he is family, not because I feel obligated. Do you understand? You are not a burden or a transaction. You are the woman I love, and marrying you is not about solving anyone's problems except my own. What problem is that? The problem of my empty house and my lonely life and my heart that did not work properly until I met you. He kissed her softly. "Say you will marry me. Say yes." "Yes," Willow whispered. "Yes, I will marry you." They held each other under the stars, and for the first time in months, Vincent felt like he could breathe properly. Everything was going to work out. Tomorrow he would talk to Thomas, and soon Willow would be his wife. The waiting would finally be over. The next morning, Vincent returned to the Hayes ranch with his mother's engagement ring in his pocket and determination in his heart. Thomas invited him in with a knowing look on his face. "I suppose you are here for the conversation we both knew was coming." "Yes, sir. I would like to ask for your daughter's hand in marriage." Thomas sat down heavily. "I figured as much. You have been courting her for nearly 3 months now. People are starting to talk, expecting an engagement. I am not proposing because of what people expect. I am proposing because I love Willow and I want to spend the rest of my life with her." Love. Thomas said the word like it was something fragile and unreliable. Love does not pay bills or keep a roof over your head. No, but it makes life worth living. And I have plenty of money to pay bills and maintain a roof. Willow will never want for anything. And what about me? What happens to this ranch when Willow leaves? Vincent had expected this question. That depends on what you want. If you want to keep running it, I can provide financial support to help you get back on solid footing. If you would rather retire, you can come live at my ranch in comfort. Or if you want something else entirely, we can discuss that. I am not trying to take your daughter away from you, sir. I am just trying to give her a happy future." Thomas studied him for a long time. Finally, he said, "You really do love her, do not you, more than anything? And she loves you. I can see it, even though she tries to hide it. She looks at you the way her mother used to look at me, back when we were young and everything felt possible. Then give us your blessing. Let us build the life we both want." Thomas stood up and extended his hand. "You have my blessing. Take care of my daughter, Navarro. She is all I have got." Vincent shook his hand firmly. "I will spend every day of my life making sure she is happy and safe. You have my word." When Willow came in from the barn a few minutes later, she found both men standing in the kitchen, her father looking resigned and Vincent looking jubilant. "What happened?" Vincent crossed to her in 2 long strides and took her hand. "Your father has given us his blessing. Willow Hayes, in front of God and your father, I am asking you again. Will you marry me?" He pulled out the ring, a simple gold band with a small diamond, and Willow gasped. "It is beautiful." "It was my mother's. I know I should have bought you something new, but this feels right, like she is giving us her blessing too. I love it." Willow held out her hand and Vincent slid the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly, as if it had been made for her. "Yes, yes, I will marry you." Thomas cleared his throat. "I suppose congratulations are in order. When are you planning to have this wedding?" "As soon as possible," Vincent said. "Unless Willow wants something elaborate that takes time to plan." "No," Willow said quickly. "I do not need anything elaborate. Just our families and friends. Something simple but meaningful." "A month then," Thomas said. "That should give us time to plan something appropriate and get word out to everyone who should be invited." The next month passed in a blur of preparations. Willow worked with Sally Morrison to make her wedding dress, a simple but elegant gown in cream-colored satin. Vincent arranged for a small reception to be held at his ranch after the ceremony, hiring people from town to help with cooking and decorating. Thomas alternated between gruff approval and occasional moments of sadness as he prepared to let his daughter go. During this time, Willow and Vincent continued to meet at night at the fence line, though now their conversations were about the future instead of the present. They talked about where she would sleep, which rooms she might redecorate, whether she wanted to help with the ranch operations or focus on the house. Vincent admitted he hoped she would keep singing, not just for him but for herself, and maybe even for others. Willow said she wanted to learn everything about running the ranch, to be a true partner in the business. "You really want that?" Vincent asked, surprised. "Most women would be happy to leave the ranch work to their husbands." "I am not most women. I grew up on a ranch, Vincent. I know how to ride and rope and birth calves. I want to use those skills. I want to feel useful." "You will never be anything less than useful, essential even. But if you want to work alongside me, I would love that. I have been doing it all alone for so long." Having a partner, having you, sounds like a dream. The wedding took place on a bright November morning at the small church in Eureka. Willow wore her new dress with her hair down in loose waves, and she carried a bouquet of late-blooming wildflowers that Vincent had picked himself that morning. Thomas walked her down the aisle with tears in his eyes, and when he placed her hand in Vincent's, he whispered, "Be happy, little bird." The ceremony was simple but beautiful. They exchanged vows in front of about 30 guests, promising to love and honor each other all the days of their lives. When the preacher said Vincent could kiss his bride, he did so with such tenderness that several women in the audience openly wept. The reception at Vincent's ranch was a joyful affair, with music and dancing and food that seemed never-ending. Thomas actually smiled and even laughed a few times, enjoying himself despite his earlier reservations. Sally Morrison pulled Willow aside at one point and said, "You are absolutely glowing. This is exactly what I hoped for you." As the sun set and the guests began to leave, Vincent pulled Willow out onto the porch of what was now their home. In the distance, the stars were beginning to appear, the same stars she had sung to all those months ago. "Will you sing for me?" Vincent asked. "As my wife, right here on our porch." Willow smiled and lifted her face to the sky. Then she opened her mouth and let the music pour out, that same pure and haunting sound that had first captured Vincent's heart. But this time, there was something new in it, something that sounded like joy and hope and perfect contentment. When the song ended, Vincent pulled her into his arms. "Thank you for singing for me. Thank you for choosing me. Thank you for making every night worth living." "You are the reason I sing," Willow said softly. "Every night for the rest of our lives I will sing for you," and she did. The first year of their marriage was an adjustment for both of them, but it was also the happiest time either had ever known. Willow threw herself into learning every aspect of ranch management, riding out with Vincent most mornings to check on cattle and fences. She had a natural gift for working with horses, and soon Vincent put her in charge of their breeding program. She also made changes to the house, adding curtains and rugs and small touches that made the place feel like a home instead of just a building where someone slept between work shifts. But the biggest change was the music. Now that she did not have to hide her singing, Willow sang constantly. She sang while she cooked breakfast, while she rode the property lines, while she folded laundry and swept floors. Vincent found himself structuring his day around those moments when he could stop and just listen to her voice filling the air. One evening in late spring, about 6 months after the wedding, they were sitting on the porch together watching the sunset when Willow said, "I have been thinking about something." "What is that?" "Remember when we first talked about my singing, and you asked if I would ever want to perform for others? Not in a saloon or anything inappropriate, but in a more respectable setting, I remember." "Why?" "The church is having a social next month to raise money for a new roof. The Reverend asked if I might be willing to sing. Nothing too elaborate, just a few hymns and maybe 1 or 2 other songs. What do you think?" Vincent took her hand. "I think you should do it if you want to. You have been hiding your light under a bushel for too long. Let people hear what I get to hear every day." So Willow agreed to sing at the church social, and when the evening came, she stood at the front of the crowded room and poured her heart into every note. The audience was spellbound. listening with the same rapt attention Vincent always gave her. When she finished, there was a moment of stunned silence before everyone erupted into applause. After that, invitations started coming in regularly. Would she sing at so-and-so's wedding? Could she perform at the Harvest Festival? Would she be willing to sing at the 4th of July celebration? Willow accepted some invitations and politely declined others, but she was no longer hiding her gift. She was sharing it with the world, and Vincent could not have been prouder. Thomas Hayes ended up selling his ranch to a young family looking to start fresh in Wyoming. With the money from the sale and some financial help from Vincent, he built a small house on the edge of the Navarro property and officially retired from ranching. He spent his days fishing, reading, and coming over for dinner several times a week. His relationship with Vincent never became warm exactly, but it evolved into something respectful and occasionally even friendly. As their second year of marriage approached, Willow started feeling tired and nauseous in the mornings. She suspected what it meant before the doctor confirmed it, and when she told Vincent they were going to have a baby, he actually cried with joy. "A baby," he kept saying, touching her still flat stomach with wonder. "We are going to have a baby. Are you hoping for a boy or a girl?" "I do not care even a little bit. As long as the baby and you are healthy, that is all that matters." Willow gave birth the following spring to a healthy baby boy they named Thomas William Navarro, after both their fathers. Little Tommy, as they called him, had his mother's eyes and his father's dark hair, and from the very beginning he seemed to respond to music. Willow would sing to him while she rocked him to sleep, and he would stare at her with wide, fascinated eyes. 2 years later, a daughter arrived. They named her Rose, after Vincent's mother, and she had her father's smile and her mother's voice. By the time she was 3, she was humming along with Willow's songs, and Vincent knew his daughter would be a singer too. The ranch prospered under their joint management. Vincent and Willow made a formidable team, with Vincent handling the business and financial aspects, while Willow managed the horses and much of the day-to-day operations. They hired good people, paid fair wages, and built a reputation as honest ranchers who treated everyone with respect. On their 5th wedding anniversary, Vincent surprised Willow by building her a music room in the house. It had big windows that looked out over the prairie, comfortable chairs for guests, and excellent acoustics. "You have been singing on the porch and in the barn and everywhere else," he explained. "I thought you might like a space that is just for music." Willow threw her arms around his neck. "It is perfect. You are perfect. How did I get so lucky? I am the lucky one. Do not ever forget that." That night, after the children were asleep, they walked out to the old fence line where they had first met. It had been years since they had stood in this exact spot, but it still felt special, still felt like the place where their story had truly begun. "Do you remember the first time I heard you sing?" Vincent asked, pulling her close. "I thought I was hearing an angel. I remember thinking you were going to ruin everything by telling people about me. Instead, I fell completely in love with you. Instead, you became the reason I sing every night." Willow looked up at the stars, the same stars she had sung to all those years ago. "I used to sing because I was lonely, because I was looking for something I could not name, but now I sing because I am happy. Because I have you and our children and this life we have built together. Will you sing for me now, like you did that first night?" So Willow sang, her voice rising up to meet the stars, and Vincent listened with the same wonder and love he had felt the very first time. When the song ended, she turned to him with tears in her eyes. "Thank you," she said. "For what? For stopping that night, for listening, for seeing me when I felt invisible, for loving me exactly as I am. Thank you for letting me hear you, for trusting me with your songs and your heart." for making every single day an adventure, for giving me a reason to do more than just exist. They stood there under the stars for a long time, holding each other close, two people who had found exactly what they needed in each other. The prairie stretched out around them, vast and beautiful, and somewhere in the distance, a coyote howled at the moon. But neither of them noticed because they were too busy kissing, too wrapped up in each other to pay attention to anything else. Eventually, they walked back to the house hand in hand, back to their children sleeping peacefully in their beds, back to the life they had built together through love and hard work and unwavering commitment to each other. And later that night, as they lay in bed with the windows open and the cool breeze drifting in, Willow sang one more song, very quietly, just for Vincent. He fell asleep listening to her voice, the same way he had fallen in love, completely and utterly and forever. The years continued to pass in a rhythm of seasons and celebrations. Tommy grew tall and serious, preferring the practical aspects of ranching to anything artistic, though he always stopped what he was doing when his mother sang. Rose, on the other hand, inherited her mother's musical gift in full measure, and by the time she was 10, she was singing duets with Willow at church and social events. When Tommy was 15 and Rose was 13, Willow gave birth to another son, a surprise after so many years. They named him James, and he completed their family in a way they had not known they needed. James was the most musical of all their children, eventually learning to play the fiddle and guitar in addition to singing, and the house was always filled with music when he was home. Thomas Hayes lived to be 78 years old, long enough to see all three of his grandchildren grow into remarkable young people. He died peacefully in his sleep one winter night, and they buried him next to Willow's mother in the Eureka Cemetery. At the funeral, Willow sang her mother's favorite hymn, her voice strong despite her tears, and everyone who heard it said it was the most beautiful funeral service they had ever attended. Vincent and Willow never stopped making time for each other despite the demands of raising children and running a ranch. At least once a week, they would walk out to the old fence line after dark and stand under the stars, just the two of them. Willow would sing, and Vincent would listen, and for those few precious moments they were young again, falling in love for the first time. As they moved into middle age, Vincent's hair started going gray at the temples, and Willow developed laugh lines around her eyes and mouth. But to each other, they were still the young cowboy and the singing woman who had found each other in the darkness and decided to build a life together. "You ever regret it?" Willow asked him one night as they stood at the fence line on their 20th wedding anniversary. Marrying a poor rancher's daughter instead of someone more suitable, Vincent looked at her like she had lost her mind. "Regret marrying the woman who gave me 3 incredible children, who sings to me every night, who made my house a home and my life worth living. Are you serious right now?" "I just mean that you could have had your pick of women. You did not have to choose me." "I did not choose you because I had to. I chose you because I could not imagine choosing anyone else. You were singing to the stars, Willow, and you sounded like everything I had been missing." "You still sound like that, every single day." She leaned her head on his shoulder. "I love you so much it scares me sometimes." "Good. That means you understand how I feel about you." They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the stars until Vincent said, "I have been thinking about something." "What?" "We have been so focused on building the ranch and raising the children that we have never really traveled. What if we took a trip, just the two of us? Maybe to San Francisco or even New York, the places you used to dream about seeing." Willow lifted her head to look at him in surprise. "You want to leave the ranch?" "For a few weeks, yes. Tommy is old enough to manage things here. We have good people working for us. And I want to take you somewhere special, to give you some of the experiences you thought you would never have. I want to hear you sing in a grand theater, all dressed up, with an audience that appreciates what I appreciate every day. Vincent, I do not need grand theaters. I have everything I want right here. I know you do not need it, but maybe you deserve it anyway. Let me give you this, Willow. Let me take you on an adventure. So they planned a trip to San Francisco for the following summer. Tommy, now 22 and fully capable of running the ranch, encouraged them to go, promising to take good care of everything in their absence. Rose, who was 20 and recently married to a kind young man from a neighboring ranch, also supported the idea. And James, at 15, was old enough to help Tommy with whatever needed doing. The trip to San Francisco was everything Willow had imagined and more. They stayed in a fancy hotel, ate at restaurants where the food was like nothing they had ever tasted, and walked through streets filled with people from all over the world. Vincent bought Willow beautiful dresses and took her to see professional theater productions that left her breathless. But the highlight of the trip came when Vincent arranged for her to sing at a private concert for a small group of music lovers he had connected with through business contacts. Willow was terrified at first, certain she would embarrass herself in front of these sophisticated city people. But once she started singing, all the fear fell away. She sang the songs she had always sung, the ones about prairie winds and open skies and love that lasted forever, and when she finished, there was not a dry eye in the room. Afterward, a woman approached her and said, "That was extraordinary. Have you ever considered making recordings? Your voice deserves to be preserved." Willow laughed. "No, thank you. I sing for my family and my community. That is enough for me." On the train ride home, as they rattled through the mountains back toward Wyoming, Vincent said, "You could have said yes, you know. You could have a career as a professional singer if you wanted one. It is not too late." "I know," Willow said, lacing her fingers through his. "But that was never really what I wanted. I wanted to sing, yes. But more than that, I wanted to sing for someone who truly heard me. I wanted to sing for you. Everything else is just extra." When they arrived back at the ranch, their children greeted them with hugs and stories about everything that had happened while they were gone. The house felt warm and welcoming, filled with the sounds of family and home. That night, as they lay in their own bed after weeks of sleeping in unfamiliar places, Willow sang softly in the darkness, and Vincent listened with his eyes closed and a smile on his face. "I am glad we went on the trip," he said when she finished, "but I am even gladder to be home." "Me too. This is where we belong. This is where our story is." More years passed, bringing changes and challenges and joys. Tommy married a practical woman who loved ranching as much as he did, and they had 4 children in quick succession, filling the ranch with the sounds of another generation. Rose and her husband had 2 daughters who both inherited the family's singing voices. James eventually moved to Denver to pursue music professionally, playing in orchestras and teaching students, though he came home regularly to visit and always brought new songs to share with his mother. Vincent and Willow became grandparents and then great-grandparents, watching their family tree grow and spread. The ranch continued to prosper, and they eventually handed over most of the day-to-day management to Tommy and his wife, though they both still helped out when needed. But through all the changes and all the years, 2 things remained constant. Every night, Willow sang, and every night, Vincent listened. Sometimes she sang on the porch while he sat in his rocking chair. Sometimes she sang in bed while they lay together in the darkness. Sometimes she sang in the music room while he sat by the window and watched the sun set over the prairie. And sometimes, when they were both feeling nostalgic, they would walk out to the old fence line and stand under the stars, just like they had on that first night. On their 50th wedding anniversary, their entire family gathered at the ranch for a massive celebration. There were over 40 people present. From their children and grandchildren to great-grandchildren they were still getting to know. The house overflowed with laughter and music and love. And as Willow looked around at all the faces that existed because she and Vincent had found each other, she felt overwhelmed with gratitude. That evening, after most of the guests had left or gone to bed, Vincent took Willow's hand and led her outside. The November air was cold, much colder than it had been on their wedding day 50 years ago, but the stars were just as bright. "I have something I want to say to you," Vincent began, his voice rougher now with age but still strong. "You do not have to say anything. We have been married 50 years. I know everything there is to know about how you feel. Maybe, but I want to say it anyway." He turned to face her, taking both her hands in his. "When I first heard you singing all those years ago, I thought you were the most beautiful thing I had ever encountered. And I was right, but I had no idea how much more beautiful you would become over time. Every year with you has been better than the last. Every song has meant more. Every moment has been more precious. You took a lonely cowboy who was just going through the motions and you taught him how to really live. You gave me purpose and joy and a reason to wake up every morning. You gave me a family and a home and a life beyond my wildest dreams. And you did it all just by being exactly who you are." Willow was crying now, tears streaming down her weathered cheeks. "Vincent, I am not done. I want you to know that if I could go back and live my life over again, I would not change a single thing. Because every choice I made led me to that fence line on that night when I heard you singing. And hearing you sing was the moment my real life began. You are my reason, Willow. You always have been. You always will be." "You are my reason too," Willow whispered. "You are why I sing every night, because you listen like every song is a gift, because you make me feel seen and heard and valued, because loving you is the easiest and best thing I have ever done." They held each other under the stars. Two old people who had built a lifetime together, who had faced joys and sorrows and everything in between, who had chosen each other over and over again for 50 years, and would keep choosing each other for however much time they had left. "Will you sing for me?" Vincent asked. "One more time right here where it all started." So Willow lifted her face to the stars and sang. Her voice was not as strong as it had been when she was 20, but it was rich with the depth of experience and love and life fully lived. She sang the same wordless melody she had sung on that first night, and Vincent listened with tears running down his face, knowing he was the luckiest man who had ever lived. When the song ended, they walked slowly back to the house, back to the family they had created, back to the life that had exceeded every expectation. And later that night, as they settled into bed with aching joints and grateful hearts, Willow sang one last quiet song, just for Vincent. He fell asleep listening to her voice, the way he had fallen in love all those years ago, completely and utterly and forever. And in the morning, he would wake up to another day with the woman who had changed his life just by singing to the stars. Another day to love her, to listen to her, to be grateful for the miracle of having found her. Because Vincent Navarro had caught her singing to the stars, and she had become the reason he lived. And Willow Hayes had found someone who truly heard her, and he had become the reason she sang every night. And they lived happily ever after, surrounded by love and music and the wide open Wyoming sky, exactly as they were always meant to do.